human nature and human dignity. Imagine if you were an alien from a distant galaxy, sent to investigate life on Earth and report back on our world. What would your scientific study lead you to conclude about this planet's most intriguing and perhaps most terrifying species of animal? In other words, what would the alien scientists conclude about us as they perhaps observed hundreds of thousands of years of human existence? They would certainly see differences over time and differences across various places. They would see societies growing more hierarchical as they grew more complex. They would see a biological difference between males and females, together with a difference in the average larger size of males and the average smaller size of females, as in some similar species. And they would observe that these physical differences generally went hand in hand with leadership roles being exercised by males. Would the aliens conclude that members of the human species all shared a fundamental human dignity and equality? I guess not. But I'm imagining the aliens would have the same limitations that any modern human scientist of today has, the limitation of observing us as a material species, a highly developed physical animal. But there is much more that can be said about human beings, including their being made in the image of God. This is something we find revealed by God to us in the Bible. God made us in his own image and likeness, and this is not said of any other material thing God created. Here we have a fundamental truth of Catholic faith, which lies at the basis of how Catholic social teaching construes the human person and considers that person's place in the wider human community and even humanity's place in the wider world. Fundamental human equality is just one part of this way of thinking. Of course, it's obvious that we are all unequal in many different ways. I may not be as good at maths as another person, and I may not be as fast at running as another person. But because all human beings, from the first to the last, from the youngest to the oldest, are made in God's image, we all share a basic equality that just goes with being human. This means that it is a truth about human nature, something all human beings share in common, something that just comes with being human. Another thing the alien scientist might observe about the human animal is the enormous variety of behavior exhibited in our species, a greater diversity than is found in any other animal on Earth. We have such a diversity of languages, so many different ways to organize our common life and society, so many different ways to cook and celebrate and dance and be human. But what holds us all together in all these differences is a shared human nature, a common set of capacities and abilities and inclinations that make us all human. Other species, say of birds, reptiles, and so on, have their own sets of capacities and inclinations. But in each case, these lead to more restricted forms of life than we find in human nature. Birds build nests, beavers build dams, and all these things are wonderful. But humans can construct their shelter in a much greater variety of ways. The reason for such things is that human nature differs from the nature of every other material thing, and it differs because the human soul is immaterial in such a way that it remains in existence forever, is immortal. This is Catholic belief, and it's not something material science can prove, but it's not a conviction that's private to Catholics either. Philosophers have often speculated that there is an immaterial soul that transcends the limits of our bodily materiality. We are more than just physical beings. Catholic theology draws together what God has revealed to us about our human nature and what can be argued just from philosophy, from the human reason that all human beings share. To some extent, Catholic faith also points us away from some philosophical thinking. Sometimes people might think that the body and the soul are two totally separate substances, just loosely tied together. But for Catholics, the human being is a unity of body and soul, one complete substance composed of material body and immaterial soul. And this is why Catholics trust not simply in the soul's survival after death, but in the resurrection of the body, revealed by Jesus' own resurrection from the dead, the resurrection of a complete human nature. Once we realize that humans are composed not only of a material body, but also of an immaterial soul, we can see what it is that puts the whole human being in the image of God, something that's true for no other animal. St. Thomas Aquinas speculated that our human capacity for a higher knowledge and love, which outstrips the knowledge and love of any other animal, is rooted in our distinctive immateriality. Because we have these unique souls, we can know in a way that transcends our materiality, and that makes us able to love in a higher way. We are rational animals, intellectual animals, and this is why we call human beings persons. It's our human nature's transcendence of its material limitations that allows our minds to think about truth, about goodness itself and beauty, and to rethink how we can live human life in a great diversity of ways, something no other animal nature can achieve. It's also this immateriality that puts the whole human person in the image and likeness of God, God in whom are present infinite knowing and loving, shared by a trinity of divine persons. It is by our capacity for a higher knowledge and love, expressed in language, this relatedness of knowing and loving one to another, and even a capacity to know and love God, that we are put in God's image. And this imaging becomes the more intense, the more our knowledge and love become a reality. It is this common human nature that makes us all who we are, persons, related to one another and orientated to a common good. And it is this image in every person that gives us our shared human dignity and fundamental equality. This is a basic truth that is at the heart of Catholic social thinking.
In the next episode, we'll ask, are human rights really self-evident? If this is the first episode you've watched, we recommend you watch the introductory episode of this series next.